romantic love stories. Place du Théâtre, at the foot of Sacré-Cœur, has maintained the fascinating atmosphere of a 19th century village, and its powerful emotional impact evokes the roaring years of bohemian life. As we walk amidst the throngs, it's hard to imagine that a little over a century ago, Montmartre was a town of vine dressers who were fiercely proud of their independence. In fact, this is where the Commune of Paris met its bloody end, following the workers' uprising of 1871. Ablaze with colourful neon lights, the district of nighttime entertainment lies at the foot of Montmartre, with cabarets, striptease shows, sex shops and X-rated cinemas. Place Pigalle, Boulevard de Clichy, Moulin Rouge, and a little further away, the Folies Bergère, evoke the unconventional side of the city, far from the echoes of the French can-can. Until 20 years ago, this was the location of Les Halles, the city food market and legendary Belly of Paris described in Zola's novels. Today, the market of Les Halles has been moved to the suburbs, and Forum des Halles, an enormous shopping centre, now fills the void left by the old market. As a reminder of these roaring days, the little restaurants and taverns can still be seen. On cold winter nights, they would serve scalding soupe à l'oignon, onion soup, to the chilled crowds of tradesmen and transporters. This quarter is also now the site of the Centre Pompidou, or Centre Beaubourg, the impressive and futuristic centre for art and culture designed by Renzo Piano and Richard Rogers in the 70s. The centre helped relaunch the image of Paris as a modern European capital. On the banks of the Seine, near Notre-Dame, is Place de l'Hôtel de Ville, with the elaborately decorated 19th century Hôtel de Ville or City Hall. The quarter east of the Hôtel de Ville is known as Marais, named after the ancient marais or marsh that was once there. Between the 16th and 18th centuries, some of the most beautiful aristocratic residences in Paris were built here. Today, Marais is one of the most sought-after districts in Paris, with enticing shops and charming little restaurants just waiting to be discovered. A bronze statue of Louis XIV heralds the courtyards of Hôtel Cannavalet, the work of the same architects who designed the Louvre. Decorations, sculptures, courtyards and facades are among the most elegant architectural works left by Renaissance France. Today, the building houses the Paris History Museum. One of the rare vestiges of medieval Paris is the towered gate of Hôtel de Soubise. Instead, the palace itself was built in the 18th century and houses part of the National Archives. The rest of the archives are in the adjacent Hôtel de Rohan, another elegant 18th century building that overlooks French gardens. Place des Vosges is the heart and symbol of Marais. This quadrangular square effectively forms a courtyard, as it is closed off by symmetrical buildings made of red brick and white stone with porticos. The square, which now has a garden in the center, was originally called Place Royale, and festivals, duels and tournaments were held there. We will now leave the Marais Quarter and cross the Seine near Notre-Dame. At this point, we are on the rive gauche, or the left bank. The area is crowded with stands set up by bouquinistes, outdoor bookstalls offering old editions and prints, antique postcards, and the charm of open-air culture. Directly across from Notre-Dame is the most famous restaurant in Paris, the Tour d'Argent, which offers canard à l'orange, orange duck, accompanied by the elegant rituals of yesteryear. At Place Saint-Michel, we enter the Latin Quarter, whose two main thoroughfares are Boulevard Saint-Michel and Boulevard Saint-Germain. As we go down Boulevard Saint-Michel, we come to some of the most important sites in historic Paris, from Hôtel de Cluny to the Sorbonne, which houses the university, and the Panthéon, the mausoleum of French glory. In the Latin Quarter, we can find books and documents from any field. Paris is truly a repository and crossroads of knowledge. At the intersection of Boulevard Saint-Michel and Boulevard Saint-Germain is the loveliest residence of medieval Paris, Hôtel de Cluny, which was the Parisian residence of the abbots of the famous Cluny monastery. It was built over the remains of Roman baths, part of which can still be seen. With a touch of nostalgia, Hemingway once wrote that if one is lucky enough to live in Paris as a young person, then wherever you go for the rest of your life, it stays with you, for Paris is a movable feast. The Latin Quarter, with its university, now dominated by the impressive Tour Montparnasse, has always been known for this joie de vivre. The dome that stands out along the skyline of the Latin Quarter is the one atop the Panthéon, the church in which illustrious Frenchmen are buried. Built as a church in the 18th century, it's an important page in the history of French architecture because it marks a return to the ancient classical style, contrasting with the Baroque style popular during the period. Voltaire, Rousseau, Zola, Victor Hugo, and other notables are buried here. It was under the dome of the Panthéon that Foucault demonstrated the Earth's rotation using his famous pendulum. From the Panthéon, we'll go to the Luxembourg Gardens, located on the edge of the Latin Quarter. The vast green area of the park, which breaks up the uniform grey of the quarter, is named after an elegant Renaissance building whose shape recalls the Pitti Palace in Florence. The innermost part of the Luxembourg Gardens is laid out according to the French geometric model, whereas the outer part was inspired by English gardens. Taking Boulevard Saint-Germain, the main road on the left bank, we come to Place Saint-Germain-des-Prés. We'll turn right on Rue de Bellechasse, which will bring us to the entrance to the Musée d'Orsay. Place Saint-Germain is famous for its two cafes, the Flore and the Deux Magots, which were the haunts of intellectuals in the 40s, 50s and 60s. Overlooking the square is the oldest church in Paris, Saint-Germain-des-Prés, built in the 11th century. The city's most fertile period from an artistic standpoint goes from the mid-19th century to World War I. The most celebrated school of painting was the one of the Impressionists, who paved the way for the rise of modern art. Paris has devoted an enormous museum to the Impressionists, and it is second only to the Louvre in size and majesty. The museum is housed in the 19th century Gare d'Orsay, a railway station that has long been out of use. Gaetano Lenti was appointed to transform the old and illustrious building, also designing the interior layout. At the Musée d'Orsay, visitors can now admire the famous artwork of Renoir, Manet, Degas, Monet, Van Gogh, Gauguin and Cézanne, all collected under one roof. Nearly a century before the Pantheon was built, the great Adrien Mansart designed the audacious dome of the Hôtel des Invalides. Louis XIV had the immense building constructed to house war invalids, who until then had been destined to a life of misery and, in some cases, even begging. Hôtel des Invalides, which has a broad green esplanade in front of it, now also houses the War Museum. However, it is known above all as Napoleon's memorial. Even now, the French venerate the memory of the man who conquered the European empire after defeating the armies of the continent, who had united against France. After the passage of Napoleon's army, Europe was never the same again, and the ideas spread by the French Revolution conquered one country after another. Napoleon's tomb, made of red granite, is set in a spectacular position in the round crypt, which is the same size as the dome. The 12 large statues of the goddesses of victory that surround it recall Napoleon's victories between 1797 and 1815.